The Square Enix has dropped a bombshell this week as they announced that they've sold off some massive studios and IPs to Swedish conglomerate Embracer Group.
Whoops. I'm going to fix that one in edit.
So those studios include Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal. And the IPs are massive. So we've got Tomb Raider, which, like, we'll get to the purchase price, but Deus Ex, Thief, and Legacy of Kain. So the deal does not include any Western IPs such as Just Caus, Outriders, and Life is Strange. It will include more than 50 back catalog games from Square Enix. So the total purchase price was $300 million US. It's expected to close in a few months, and there's more than 1,000 employees over the 3 studios and 8 locations globally. Square Enix has said the deal is, quote, it enables the launch of new businesses by moving forward with investments in fields such as blockchain, AI, and the cloud, end quote. They didn't have the NFT thing like they did at the Christmas note or the New Year's note at the start of the year. So, Sweeney, given that you've played most of these IPs in your sort of, more impacted, I guess you could say, with Tomb Raider and then also Deus Ex, which we both like, how do you feel about this?
Well, I was very surprised, given that as you were alluding to, like the strength of these IPs, especially Tomb Raider. Like, I wouldn't ever expect a company to sell off an IP like Tomb Raider. But I'm also very optimistic now because we know that some of these IPs, especially something like Legacy of Kain, that people have wanted to bring back for so long.
Yeah.
Thief as well. I know the last one didn't set the world on fire, but people still love that franchise. And obviously Deus Ex, we know that Square Enix are very hesitant to bring that game back, and everyone that series back. I'm really optimistic that Embracer Group will actually do something with these properties, and potentially even re-release, and this is what I'm super excited about, re-release things like some older Tomb Raider games again in like a remastered form. That is easy money in my impression, from my perspective, and it's something I would really love to see. So,
I find that this acquisition, it almost doesn't make sense to me. Like, when I heard it, and then you see the IP, I'm like, is this for real? This seems insane to me. That's $300 million.
Doesn't you think it's cheap, or?
Dude, like, to me, this might go down as one of the greatest deals. Like, I was always saying Insomniac, ballpark from memory, Insomniac was like 200 mil or something like that. You got to remember, dude, like Bethesda, what was that? $8,000 million? 8,000. And this is 300, right? Like Activision Blizzard, which, to be fair, is like the amount of IPs and everything like that. That's like 68,000 million. Yeah. And this is 300.
No, you're right. This is cheap, especially for big IPs like this.
And the thing that I don't understand about this deal is, like, Lara Croft and Tomb Raider, I mean, they've had 3 films in that sort of franchise, and just how, video game films are doing at the moment, I feel like you could make a film that will make this money back. You know what I mean? In one go.
Just in a single film, yeah.
Yeah. And I like, because, the Sonic 2 movie is now over, I think, 350 million, like, box office.
Wow.
So,
but do you get the rights? I mean, do we know the details? Do you
I'm
get the rights for
that,
film or just games? Or how does it work?
I feel like that would have been called out in the deal. Like,
surely.
You surely would have been called out in some way.
Merchandise?
Yeah.
Anything like that?
Well, because they're saying they own the IPs.
Yeah, so they should be able to.
Fuck, man. Like, when I saw this deal, I was like, damn, this is like... And also, these studios are not terrible studios. Like...
No, they're great studios.
They're some of the best studios in the world.
Exactly. And you know what I think?
It's fucking crazy, this deal, honestly. Like,
absolutely.
Insomniac have barely got any IPs. Like, they're a really good studio. They make great games. Spider-Man consistently ranks on the PS4 as top 5 games on that console, right? Like, but they don't have that many IPs. Like, this is crazy, this deal. Like, really good studios and then really strong IPs and, like, good secondary IPs as well that you can make good games about.
Look, personally, I think it's ultimately really good for gamers. I think hopefully the studios will do something really good with these IPs. The latest Tomb Raider games were actually really solid games. I haven't completed all of them, but they were great games for the kind of genre that the games are. Really, really good. Visually, gameplay wise, fantastic. Thief, the latest Thief, didn't really get as well reviewed. So I think there's potential there to actually grow that franchise, and come up with a few really good Thief games. And I'm actually looking forward to see what they do with that, because those games were amazing in their own sort of way, in their own unique type of gameplay. And one thing that I would say is I am glad that they're getting rid of Deus Ex. If it's one game that I don't want it to be NFT'd and turned into all that bullshit.
Yeah,
I mean,
remember
look at
that.
all the praxis
out.
points bullshit that the previous one had. It was a minor thing, right? It wasn't anything big. But you can kind of tell they were going into that direction where you could just literally buy as many upgrade points as you want to make the game trivial, with real world money. And I'm not saying that, whatever company takes this on board isn't going to do something like that.
I
But
mean, embrace the group.
embrace the group, yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. I just think I'd rather not see that franchise be turned to shit by a company like. Let's face it, I've lost respect for Square Enix completely. They made some of my fondest games, but with the shenanigans recently, yeah, they're in my blacklist at the moment. So they are. I just think the entire push to NFT thing automatically just puts them into a shit position in my
I still
mind.
don't understand how Grand Theft Auto has evaded your blacklist. Like all the bullshit things
I know,
that
I know.
studio's done. Like
It-
complete
they've done a
bullshit. Like
lot.
selling
I
the
know,
same
I know,
game
I know,
on
it should. It should.
3 generations now.
Yep.
Forcing you
Maybe
to buy
'cause
it over and over again.
Well, here's the thing I
forcing
justified,
it,
because
you
look at
choose.
the latest version was what, $15 or something. And I'm like, I'll pay $15 for an upgrade. I haven't spent a single other dollar on that in terms
Anyway.
of the online shit, but
You know,
yeah.
it's interesting about Thief because I always feel like that's a very mixed game. Like, and it feels like a cult classic. Like, there's a lot of people I respect their opinion, and they just rave about how good Thief is.
It was a really good game, the original one.
I'm actually really keen to play it because I rate some of these people who are like, "Oh no, Thief's really good. Like, you need to just stick with it a bit," and it really like
The new
blows your
one, you
mind.
mean, or the originals?
No, the new one, I don't know.
Well,
Have
the
you ever
origi-
played it, Swinny?
Yeah, I have. I was okay. I didn't get far enough into it to say whether or not I thought it was great or not. The originals are like absolutely beloved though,
Yeah.
like Thief: The Dark Age and all that stuff. But yeah, with this, I guess you've probably got more to say about the general deal, but I do want to talk a bit about Embracer Group.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when this deal came up again, like I constantly, each time Embracer Group buys a company, and this is the most high profile they've done in a while. I know they bought Gearbox, but Gearbox isn't on the level of Tomb Raider in terms of mass appeal and everything. Their
Yeah.
games, obviously Borderlands, but Tomb Raider's Tomb Raider. Everyone's like, oh, Embracer Group, who are they every single time? And I remember hearing years ago, and that they were essentially buying up all these smaller studios and growing over time to the point where I was looking at, and these were just, these are all Wikipedia stats, so grain of salt, but they're currently, as of, I think, 2021 financial year, the 17th biggest gaming company in terms of revenue. So, and you look at all the companies above them, they're all household names almost, So Embracer Group is basically, they formed off, they originally, you had Nordic Games and there was, different, you got the holding company and you got the brand and everything. Then when THQ went under, they turned into THQ Nordic. And then eventually, I think it was in 2019, to separate the company that owns all the the studios and everything from the THQ Nordic brand. Then they got renamed to Embracer Group. But we're talking about, acquisitions over time. So they bought Gearbox, Koch Media. That's my best. Koch.
Yeah, it's
Koch Media.
Koch.
Koch
No, it's
Media.
meant to be called Coke Media.
Coke
Coke.
Media. Saber Interactive, Piranha Bytes, fuck yeah. Like 3D Realms, Beamdog, Dark Horse, like the comics, Perfect World. They've bought so many companies, especially over the last 4 years, that it's just like, it's crazy. And now they go ahead and buy these things off Square Enix. It's kind of wild. They're positioning themselves to be a massive force in the industry.
Well, what their strategy, in my opinion, is I don't know if you guys know Blumhouse Productions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so they're the folks behind things like Get Out. you know, a whole bunch of horror movies, but essentially what they do is they're not trying to make AAA movies like the equivalent in, you know, the movie terms, I guess in video game terms. They're making movies that are like 10 mil budgets, 20 mil budgets, 5 mil budgets, but it's like shotgun approach, like peppering the market with like lots of different movies. And some of them are just like exploding and like a massive hits and raking in, you know, $500 million, and they're, you know, putting in 10 mil for like, you know, however many projects, and it's, you know, paying massive dividends. And I feel like Embracer Group, you know, has seen this approach because they've been doing this for a long time, and it's kind of adopting the same mentality. And I think it's really clever of, you know, games have become too much like just indies and AAA games. Like there's nothing in the middle. And I feel like they're trying to occupy that middle space of like, okay, it's not going to be a AAA budget. And I genuinely think like from now on, you know, Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Legacy of Kain, Thief, I'll consider them like AA. Like I feel like that's the kind of money that they'll put into those games. But maybe that's not a bad thing, because I think it's also, you probably have the games quicker and, you know, just be a smaller, tighter game, which I'm personally a fan of. So
Yeah, but don't kill these beloved franchises, please, with a shitty game.
but I don't think they've really been doing that, Embracer Group, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like they bought Piranha Bytes, and Ilix still felt like a Piranha Bytes game. You know,
Yeah.
like the previous games they were, you know, they weren't owned by.
No,
by
I
them.
just mean through the strategy of trying to push games out quicker rather than getting them done right.
I know, but I
This
think
is-
it's just like you allocate the budget and then that's the game, right? Because like you look at Red Dead Redemption 2, you played that, right? The amount of like technology they had on the horse balls to bounce, like, and all this. Do you really need that?
Crazy.
It's like, you know, that's what happens when you have budget. You just go nuts. So
The key part of this to me is the fact that, you know, they've bought Crystal Dynamics, they bought Eidos Montreal, they bought the talent behind these games. It's not like they've just bought the IP. So that's why I have confidence. Now, who knows how it's going to turn out, but I'd be okay. Like you know, my thoughts on the newest Tomb Raider games, you know, I prefer Crystal Dynamics' first trilogy. And I really hope that, you know, as I said, like, I hope we get a chance to play those again on newer platforms. But I think those studios, the one thing we didn't clarify as well is I don't think it's clear at this point if they've got the publishing rights to the Marvel games.
no, definitely not.
Yeah, so that's one thing that it's just not, obviously they're made by Crystal Dynamics. Dynamics worked on the Avengers, and Eidos Montreal worked on Guardians of the Galaxy. It makes sense that Square Enix would probably retain those publishing rights to those games.
Yeah,
But
100%.
yeah, so
Yeah, and I'm like, I feel like all those games are sort of dead now. Where like Marvel's Avengers felt pretty dead, but maybe it's a bit unfortunate with Guardians of the Galaxy, which Mike, you know, you liked.
It's a solid game, yeah.
Yeah,
I like
and a lot of people liked it, but you kind of wonder if you're gonna get DLC or anything for that game now.
yeah, who knows? I'm super looking forward to hopefully a new Deus Ex game. You know, and
Yeah,
we know
same.
we know the new Tomb Raider game is in the works. So Crystal Dynamics did talk about that already. So that's obviously going to fall under. Who knows? Like I'm guessing, because the way that Embracer Group work is they have their kind of, you know, basically the subsidiary publishing brands, and I wonder what they're going to do with this, because, you know, you've got stuff breaking down into divisions already with them. Like Gearbox is one of them, so I wonder what they're going to. Maybe they'll just do Eidos, you know, as the division name or something like that. So,
Yeah, it's actually hard to just get a list of the games coming out from Embracer Group, because there's like they've literally split it into like you said, the different entities.
yeah.
And when you even combine them, it's like there's a game coming out every month from this organization, which makes sense. I think they've had like 63 acquisitions or something like that. Actually, you've got it in the run sheet, don't you? 62 acquisitions.
Yeah, and also
It's crazy.
I don't know if this is probably unrelated, but last year we covered on a show the rumors that Square Enix themselves were up for sale, which potentially could have been them looking at potentially
100%.
offshooting their IPs and stuff. So
100%.
that was back in April. So if you want to check that out, it's on episode 40, hex code 3B4696.
It's one of the best titles. Just a bit of a hype for my review of Disrupting the Game by Reggie. I think, you know, in that book it talks about the tension between Japan and, you know, the Western companies, I think that's like the last thing I wanted to say about this is just like Square Enix being truly like a Japanese company just could never make the Western side of it work. And it just seems like they hated the Western part of Square Enix, which, because I don't, like, you know, I'm a bit of a nerd with the business side of things. I would like read the investor calls, what Square Enix was talking about, and they're just shitting on like their, like, you know, Eidos Montreal and everything, like calling out, oh, it's performed so poorly and like we expected more, and like, but it wasn't in a way that was like what you would say to people to motivate them. Like, it was so brutal. And I was just like, shit, man. Like, I'd be hating these people if I was running the studio over there.
Well,
so
IO Interactive got the hell out, you know.
Yeah.
The Hitman games.
that's true. I feel like they probably, came out the best, right? Because they got Bond now. So, okay, cool. All right,
I'll be
let's
back in a tick, boys. Gotta go install Tomb Raider. That B-roll looks sick.
I feel like he actually is going to go.
We'll cover this then. We'll cover
Yeah, I
it
know.
in his
Like,
absence.
it's the worst timing.